Welcome to a drink. Nathan Drinkard. I'm Jay Wise. Thanks for spending some of your time with us. Apple Podcasts on Spotify and all the other. Looking for us in the video format. You can find us at the Drink of Wisdom YouTube channel. Drink, lots of stuff to get to today on what you would call a sensational Saturday. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. Like you said, another sensational Saturday in the books. You know what I'm saying? Everything good, man. Can't complain, man. Life is going a little, going better than expected. Even the weather seems to be getting its act together down here, well up here. So, you know, ready to get into some more of this talk. I don't want to get away. I'm gonna let you do what you do, but before we move on, I got to ask, man, how everything going with you and yours over there? Hey, that's a nice picture behind your head too.
Yes, great. Yeah, great accommodations in here. Great to be in the Commonwealth. Not exactly where you are, but great to be in the Commonwealth. Just love that. But yeah, man, how about yourself?
Like you said, great to be in the Commonwealth. Hey, I actually, for those of you that might think, I get on here and complain about, I actually like this area. I just don't care for the weather. Being a southern guy myself, I had to get used to the weather and the traffic. Now I'm getting more accustomed to it, so it is what it is. But, with that said, it's another day, another dollar. You know what I'm saying? We in here to give the streets what they need. We see what they don't. Absolutely say what they want. And I would say sit the dinner plates to eat, more like breakfast, brunch, somewhere around that line right there. But last but not least, let's talk some sports, baby. Jay, what you got for us today?
Well, this is episode 37, and one thing you will not get used to is the malignant tumor, which is the Washington, whatever they're calling themselves this week, football team. That organization. We'll explain what I mean. We'll also talk about the some of the new NFL head coaching hires, and could we have some Ben Simmons trade action? We'll explain, but we're going to start. Where are we starting? I don't have notes in front of me. What's the first topic? Just tell me what it is.
Brian Flores, Hugh
That's
Jackson.
what it is. That's what it is. We're going to revisit the Brian Flores lawsuit. We'll sprinkle in a little bit of Hugh Jackson. But basically what we had, we discussed a lot of this on Tuesday. Brian Flores put forth a lawsuit alleging some irregularity type hiring processes. Some of them, some calls of racism. The three teams involved, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, and the Denver Broncos, all three teams, along with the league, issued statements denying the allegations. You had some more kind of direct statements from guys like Stephen Ross and John Elway. So, Drake, with all that said, you've taken a lot of time to think about this and delve into it. Where do we stand as of now?
Well, so so as of everything we done read, it seems like this lawsuit would start its pre-trial like deal or its pre-deposition deal here March 18th. So we got from now until March 18th to see if anything changes as far as the plaintiffs, the defendants, and whatever the lawsuit might have you. Now, if the lawsuit stays the way it is, as it's talking about discriminatory, racism, whatnot, then I think it's gonna look a lot different by the time we get to March 18th. And why do I say that? The more I read into the three teams that's in this lawsuit, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, and the Miami Dolphins, I look at the Denver Broncos, and we discussed this before we came on live. I think at some point the Denver Broncos would not be part of this lawsuit. I think when you look at the bulk reason of Brian Flores' complaint of the discrimination and racism, I just don't think the Denver Broncos actually meet the requirements for that. Why do I say that? Because Brian Flores said that. That's why I say that. Brian Flores himself has came out on record after that interview in 2019 and said he don't think the Denver Broncos was doing anything wrong. He thought they picked the right guy, which was Vic Fangio at the time. He thought the franchise was a wonderful franchise. He loved the time he had with his owners. He actually named all five personnel that was from upper management that was actually there for the interview. One, he quoted his longtime buddy. The name eludes me. It's like Matt something. But he said that my longtime buddy, of many years, because he got familiar with him back during his personnel days with New England. So they worked together in New England back in the personnel department. So all that said, it's a little hard for me to believe that all of a sudden they was a good old franchise right after they interviewed you in 2019, and now in 2020 they was racist and they was discriminatory and this, that, and the third. And you can't say that when you said Vic Fangio was the right guy for the job. You said that. So it's like, come on, Flores. The reason I'm with you is you seem to be a guy of high integrity. You seem to be a guy that with morals. You have a line that you don't want to cross, and that's what got you here right now, because that line was crossed. So, which one is it, man? Did they discriminate against you? Was it racism, or was it just malpractice? Was it unprofessionalism? Was it, the good old boys club, as they call it? That's what it seems to me in the Denver situation was. Hey, the thing is this. It's something there because we know the history of John Elway. Like, let's go ahead and cut it dry. It's public knowledge that John Elway has been in the public intoxicated. Hell, he didn't even gave interviews intoxicated, whether they was legitimate interviews or not. You know how TMZ get down, baby. You come out of that club, or you come out of that side, little apartment, and you minding your business. Here comes some dude out of nowhere, jump out of the trash can, put a mic in your face. And next thing you know, so-and-so was caught in Connecticut drunk. Like, you know how TMZ get down. And then paparazzi in general, because John Elway is a pretty big figure when it comes to the NFL. Whether you talking about his playing career or you talking about him as a GM, he's a pretty big figure. So we know that. So if Flores say the crew came in there hungover, it's a little truth to that. I think you have to think, like, if you put the history and what he's saying, it's probably some truth to that. However, you can't equate that to discrimination of racism, because who the hell, they probably showed up to Vic Fangio interview just as drunk, So I just can't necessarily call it discrimination, because for all we know, they showed up to every interview in 2019 the same exact way. Hey, we're going to go out here, celebrate, boom, boom, boom. And they showed up hungover, whatever the case might be. And let me tell you something. It's not a crime to go out drinking and show up to work next day hungover. Is it disrespectful? Is it unprofessional? Is it unleader-like? Yes. But it's not a crime. It's not illegal to do that, because we don't know if they drove or anything. They got money, so they probably got a driver that takes them everywhere. So, with that said, the more I look at the Denver Broncos, like I said, you want to talk about malpractice, you want to talk about unprofessionalism, I'm with you. Discrimination, racism, I don't know about all that. And it's very hard for me to say otherwise when, like I said, Brian Flores himself have said none of that happened. So take that for what it's worth. Now, diving more into the Giants situation, here's the deal, right? I get with the Giants. So the Giants they're giving pushback. They're saying, hey, we got a detailed itinerary that says from this time we had him. We showed him the facility at this time. He met the owner at this time. We sat down and talked to the GM at this time. We had a 3.5 hour interview process at this time. This detailed itinerary. That's all cool. Hey Jay, just to let you know, you sideways. But you give me all these itineraries or whatnot. Okay, so that's cool in theory. Got it. Wonderful. That is wonderful. But like we talked about, Jay, and I'm pretty sure the normal regular 9-to-5 guy can contest to this if so. It's been plenty of times, right? Us being working for the military, right? We have certain sections that ask for certain things. For us, it's S3 in the Marine Corps. And the training group say, hey, man, I need to know what you're doing Monday through Friday from 08 to 16:30. We need you to break down how much training you're going to do, what kind of hands-on this you're going to do, et cetera, et cetera. And those individual sections, that's what they do. They go hand jam some stuff, make up some stuff. We're going to be painting the wall. We're going to be doing all this. and they send it to S3 and say, there you go. So on paper, that sounds good. All right, they got a detailed plan. All right, woo, yeah. But then you say, let me go down here to this section and see if they really gonna be doing this. And when you get there, you got personnel hanging from the ceiling. Half of the personnel not even at work. You got, some leadership that's probably sleeping on the job, whatever the case might have you. And then you notice that, you said y'all was gonna be doing this at 9. It's 9:05 and none of this is going on. Oh well, we just thought there was a check in the box. Oh, it's funny we use check in the box. That's kind of where we at now in the NFL, right? So they pretty much did what you told them to do, but they never had the attention to actually use that itinerary. They just did. You asked for a training schedule. I supplied you a training schedule. Next, so that's it. I think when I look at the Giants' rebuttal, that's what I think of their rebuttal. Okay, you showing me this detailed itinerary. Cool. That does not mean you didn't do. Your process was not flawed. That's all fine and dandy. But if what Bill Belichick did is indeed 100% true, your process is flawed no matter what you tell me. Because how in the hell do Bill Belichick, that has no ties to the New York Giants football organization, know who's getting hired and who's not getting hired? Was he part of the interview process? Did I miss something? They might have called Bill and said, hey, man, both of these guys work for you. What are your opinions of Brian Flores and his tenure under you? And what is your opinion of Brian Daboll and his tenure under you? Yeah, that probably happened. But are you telling me in the midst of that, somehow by the end of that conversation, you slid, hey, Bill, just between me and you, Daboll got the job. So I want to know how do Bill even know who got the job? And I got it. People talk. And Bill is a big figure in the NFL. Bill Belichick, that is. He's a big figure in the NFL. So I got it. He probably can get information that most people can't. But it's like this. I heard Emmanuel Ocho say this, and I thought this was a great way to put it. He said, in today's age, right, we have group texts. So the average person have probably 5 group texts, right? You got a group text that everybody is in, whether you like them a lot or not, whatever the case might be. But it's a group text with everybody in it. Then you got a group text with people that you take more seriously, right? These are the people you probably talk to on a daily basis, and you confide in those people more often than none, whatever the case might be, right? Then you got other group texts. Boom. Now, you might have the same people in 3 group texts minus one person. Might be one dude that's not in one of the group texts because either he talked too much, he played too much, he annoying, and you kind of just want to skirt around this cat. Sometimes when you have too many group texts, you tend to text the wrong group text. And then when you do that, the guy that you had on the outside looking in understand what's going on. Because then, let's say the guy, for example, let's say George, so I can just put a name. Let's say me, you, and George got a group text. Boom. All right, cool. Well, let's say George been out here flopping around, so I don't even care to talk to George. So now me and you have our own little conversation on the side. But then, let's say I think I'm telling you something, but I make a mistake and I shoot it to the group text with me, you, and George. Now George is like, oh, these dudes be having conversation without me. I knew they was talking behind my back, but now I can prove they was talking behind my back because he sent the message to the wrong group text. But I think, honestly, that's what happened here. I think that is a possibility when you talking about a guy that's as busy as Bill Belichick. I got these group texts. Whoop-de-whoop. I thought I was sending the message to the right group text, and I sent it to the wrong one. And then when Brian Flores said, hey, coach, which Brian are you talking about? Oh, snap. Yeah, be back after these commercial breaks. And then he apologized and, hey, my bad, man. Whoop. I think that's what happened now. And Brian Flores realized All right, it's a group text that exists that I'm not in for whatever reason. Why am I not in this group text? Now he feels like I knew it was one without me, but you just proved that it's definitely one without me. So what is going on? And that opens Pandora box. Now, I like that comparison because I think that's a very realistic comparison to most people today. I really do. So that's where I'm at with that. But like I said, with the Giants, I feel like you got to do a little more because like you always say, maybe the proof is in the fine print or whatnot, the subtext. But it's no way the Giants ain't showed me enough. I'm just gonna keep it real. I feel like the Broncos situation I done read into it enough to say I don't think they really did anything wrong on that line. But the Giants, I don't know, something happened there. I'm still feeling like it's some smoke there. Maybe not enough to be a full-fledged fire, but you got a little burning bush or something. It's something there with the Giants. Now with Miami. I don't give a rip what nobody say. If this lawsuit start on March 18th, Miami better be part of it. I don't care if the Broncos ain't in it. If you want to let the Giants go, I'm fine with that too. But the Miami Dolphins, they need to be sued. They need to be sued for wasting Brian Flores' time. Because whether this is true about them paying him to lose games or not, you fired a dude that came in there and was giving it his all. It's no way you tell me you giving him an average to below average quarterback, a below average offensive line, a below average wide receiver core, and this guy's still making it happen. Basically off the defense because the offense just kind of floundered around. The best thing about your offense was Jalen Waddle, and you only had him for 1 year. So I gotta know. Why did he get fired? And I told you this. Like, the only other minority coach that would have got fired that would have raised more eyebrows than Brian Flores was if some reason we woke up and the Steelers got rid of Mike Tomlin. Outside of that, I'm like, how is this reasonable? Like, you brought this guy here to win games. He's winning games with inferior product, and you still fire him. It's something there. Miami is dirty. I don't care what nobody's. They dirty. Y'all had to get them out of here. And my last point I wanted to make before I turn it over is it has to be something going on for Brian Flores, a very smart guy, a good coach on all measures. I think we'll agree that he's a good coach, to put his career at jeopardy by saying this. Because we know, first of all, we know how hard it is for black coaches, how harder it is for black coaches to get a coaching opportunity. Let's know a second coach, like a second one, you really pushing it. And then when you go out here and you sue the employer like he's doing, one thing we know about the owners is they usually stick together. That's why we call it the shield, right? They stick together. They let Goodell get all the punches, and then Goodell come back and he do what he do with the owners, right? For a guy this smart, for a guy that was also and still is, from my understanding, a finalist to be the head coach of the Houston Texans, for him to come out here and put his career in jeopardy like that, it kind of leads me to believe it's something here, man. He ain't an idiot. He's not a coach that's out here saying anything like his boy Hugh Jackson over there that's over here already backtracking after saying something 3 days ago. Now he already over here, I misunderstood the assignment. No, you should have just shut your mouth. If they didn't pay you, don't say anything. Don't try to get your 15 minutes of fame, but I'm going to let you eat that one up, Jay. But with that said, I just want to say it's something here, man. It's something that Brian Flores ain't just making this up. And I don't by no chance think he's making this up. He's too smart of a guy. He's too good of a coach. And his career path was going up. It's not like Kaepernick where it was kind of like, his career was kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
And and then even when he did play after that, it was like, it wasn't impressive. Flores, right now, if you did not have these allegations going, probably would have got hired by somebody by now. I told you this before this happened. I thought he would be the next head coach of the Houston Texans. I really did. Me finding out that he's still a finalist for the job kind of like supports what I thought from the beginning. Something is there. We just got to find out what the something is. March 18th is the first day we'll start getting some facts about what's going on, and we'll be able to take the he say she say Flores, he say she say Miami, he say she say Georgia Giants out of here, and then we'll start getting facts on paper of what may or may not happen. But until then, I'm gonna maintain the stance that it is something that where there's smoke, there's fire, and we just gotta figure out what's real and what's fake.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about this since what, Tuesday
Right.
or Wednesday or whatever it was.
Wednesday, yeah.
And yet I think we've arrived at the same point for the three teams. My gut feeling is this all the root of this, the root cause. The root of this is the Miami Dolphins because of how he was fired and why he was fired. Drink, the thing about guys who get fired, who, when you look at how they perform, the point is Brian Flores didn't get fired for his performance. You can get fired for other reasons. John Gruden got fired for other reasons, So I don't want to sit here and say, like, if the owner thinks the coach should go for it, even if it's not performance, then that's the owner's right. That doesn't mean I agree with it. Doesn't mean you agree with it, because we don't. Like, Brian Flores is a qualified head coach. We have seen him perform. We've seen him, definitely the first 2 seasons in Miami overachieve. And even though year 3 started off really poorly, he came on at the end. You still had an above 500 record. You still had back-to-back winning seasons for Miami for the first time since 2003, and yet he's the guy that gets fired. So I think the root of the lawsuit is how he was treated in Miami. Now, let me put my legal hat on real quick, and it's probably more like a legal visor, because I probably don't rate a full hat for the legal talk. So you bring in your legal team, and how, maybe you know how it is, maybe I don't know how it is, but I imagine what happened is they say, all right, well, you got Miami here. Is there anything else? Anybody else we want to go after? So then you sprinkle in a little bit. Well, I just had this thing happen with the Giants. Bill out here texting me some things and like didn't make no sense. And you're like, okay, we'll throw that in there. Yeah, anything else? Well, the Broncos did blah blah blah. So I think what you're seeing is the Dolphins is the meat of this.
Right.
The Giants the Giants are a little side dish, and the Broncos are the dessert. Those are the add-ons. And I do think, based on, and I didn't hear what he had to say in all the interviews, but you're talking about a CBS interview or whatever. This is the problem, I think, from a legal perspective after you file a lawsuit. Because after you file that lawsuit, and then I think most lawyers would probably tell you, hey man, just do your thing, but stay off the airwaves. Because what happens is, once you come out and you start doing these interviews, you start talking, that's an opportunity for the other side, the defense teams, to look at you and try to poke holes in your story.
Right.
And so that's why I think you're onto something by saying that Denver might just wind up out of this, because you can't, it can't be both ways. You can't say, well, they didn't take me seriously and they was drunk and all the rest of it. But then at the same time, you're basically in this interview, based on what you're telling me, basically what it sounds like is he said after the fact, Denver gave me a fair shake. They hired a different dude, no harm, no foul. And I brought up the point earlier, they had just fired a black coach in Vance Joseph, who spent 2 years there, didn't do a great job. So, they chose Vic Fangio, a guy with more experience, didn't end up working out. But to me, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think you do either. So I think Denver, I think you are correct. I think it's time wears on. Denver will wind up out of this. And John Elway did have some strong words. Like, I think he took great exception to what was said in the lawsuit about his conduct well, we don't know. The big point is overall in all of this, as far as the Giants and the Dolphins, because nobody's admitting any of this, at least publicly. So what can Brian Flores prove? Do you have more on the Giants as far is it just these Bill Belichick text messages? Or do you have more? What can you prove in regards to the Dolphins? Do you have receipts for Stephen Ross? Or do you have recordings? Or what can you prove? Because nobody's admitting anything. So we'll have to see what the investigation bears out. But overall, I mean, I do think as far as the three teams, I do really strongly think Miami is the root of this. And based on those text messages from Bill Belichick, assuming they're authentic, that's such an oddity that it doesn't make. Now, the one thing I will say about Bill is I think it's possible that based on long time ago when he was assistant with the Giants under Bill Parcells, I believe, he probably has some ties still to that organization. So I think it's plausible that he could have insider information from, somebody in that front office or, something like that to where he may have known before anybody else had known. But at the same time, that is another example of bad policy. Even if the Giants interview Brian Dable and they say, okay, that's the dude. What you still like, even though you may not like it, I certainly don't like that you have to be mandated who you interview. If you want to cover your behind or whatever you want to say, you got to hold off and you got to check these other boxes, because if you don't, you're subject to be a part of what we're doing right now. And so that's just an example of bad policy, leaking information. And then next thing you know, like Brian Flores is all up in arms because now he really, he suspects strongly enough to put his whole career on the line that he was not given a fair shake in this, because you already then hired, let's just call it White Brian. And, before you even talked to Black Brian. I saw that. I don't know if you saw that meme, but there's a Bill Belichick meme. I saw Belichick in his phone. He's getting his Bryans together by color. It's like, so there definitely seems to be something smoldering there. Like there's some sparks out there. Like it's a little bit too hot over here. And then obviously Miami, Miami, we need to take a hard look at Miami. I think that's a perfect example of just rotten ownership. I'm not seeing the race part in Miami at all. That's probably the point where, when you talk about the Rooney Rule violations, there are race elements there that we can discuss. The Miami portion, I don't see race, but I see really poor ownership and really bad policy, which is my biggest gripe. And if that's true, then that's a different discussion to where we look at these certain teams and we say, why are we losing on purpose? And the other part of that is, and it goes to Hugh Jackson, when you interview with these teams, I have to believe that, you have to kind of see, because you're an employer of those guys. And those guys talking about the owner and the GM and all the rest of the front office people, generally, they're in charge of the big picture and seeing, the long-term outlook. And sometimes, as we've seen, you go back to the Philadelphia 76ers, you can talk about some other teams that have said, okay, how do we get good? Well, sometimes, people think, well, we got to be bad for a little bit. We need to be really bad so that we can stockpile some picks. And then a couple years down the line, we'll get good. I don't love that strategy, but I mean, we have seen it work up to a point. And if you're a coach interviewing and you have to kind of know that. And if you know that and you don't want to be a part of that, because obviously if a coach has to be a part of that, he's only going to be able to survive losing so long, because that's results oriented.
Right.
And so you have to, especially, this is more to Hugh Jackson too. If you know that, and Cleveland they were in a world of hurt when he got there. They've been a joke for years. They obviously weren't going to win a lot of games. They didn't win a lot of games, but you took the job though. So now, you didn't have to take the job. You could have went and been an assistant somewhere and try to get a job a couple years later. And again, I know that's easier said than done, because these are 32 opportunities. And, some guys, you only can wait for so long. But at the same time, that's the one you chose. you got to own it from there and make the best of it. And you don't have all the control. They hired him to be the coach, not the coach and the GM and all the rest of it, like, Bill Belichick or Ron Rivera. So I think the larger point that we thought, a lot of people, it seemed like, were like hoping and thinking like, oh man, well, this ain't no surprise. I guarantee you, hey, they're going to be jumping in here, clash action status and all the rest of it. And so we saw Hugh Jackson come out immediately like, yeah, man, Jimmy was up there. He said, hey, I pay you this amount of money to lose games. And I told you earlier this week, like, you didn't need to get paid to lose games. That team was terrible. And we saw it. Can you say 1-31? What are you doing? And so, and then we have all of a sudden, well, actually, they didn't pay me because the Cleveland owner came out and said, hey, that's some bull. And then so, and then Hugh Jackson's on TV next day, like, yeah, well, actually, they didn't. They didn't pay me to lose games. Right. He's out there looking like a cornerback, just back in a backpedaling drill. Like, so, it's kind of going the opposite now. We expected a whole bunch of people to come in and join Brian Flores. We had one dude come out here and say, "Yeah, man, this happened," and now he got swatted out here like a fly. So, in closing, so we can move on. I think what I'd like to see is, we remember what happened to Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
I thought Colin Kaepernick was finished as a starting quarterback because of how he was performing. Right. But there's no question, and maybe even, I don't know up to this day, but like you go back, like, all the way back, probably like a couple years after he was pretty much thrown out the league, Colin Kaepernick still belonged on a roster, for just based on football ability. What I'm hoping here is, you talk about Houston, and I think a lot of it has to do with Brian Flores and his desire to be paired up with Deshaun Watson. I would like to see Brian Flores get a job. Brian Flores should be the coach of the Houston Texans, or he should be the head coach, because there's no way in hell you can tell me he should have been fired from Miami. Right. He should be hired. If Houston thinks he's their guy, they should hire him. And I think that would set a great example, because even though Brian Flores is going at the NFL because he feels some type of way and he feels he's been wrong. And I think it's really less. And I'm not saying there are no racial elements to it, but at the Miami piece, I don't see race in that. I just see bad policy, and I see just ownership cutting the legs out of a coach, just because they see their outlook is so warped. And it's the antithesis of competition and winning. And so I would hope that you would see a show of good faith. I think to me, like, you want a PR win in Houston, you hire Brian Flores, because now you got the diversity. Right after David Culley. We know David Culley was a joke hire. Brian Flores would be a legitimate hire.
Look, so, and listen, I know we're trying to wrap this up, but I want to say something about David Culley, because people that's what they like to use with David Culley. Let me tell you something. David Culley was the equivalent of Freddie Kitchens, a dude that they just picked up on out the clearance rack pretty much, gave him a job, and they knew they could pay him whatever they wanted to pay him, because he didn't have the experience to demand a high salary. You can pay him. David Culley was by a mile the lowest paid head coach in the NFL, and it was a reason. He was a lame duck coach. They thought that was going to make Deshaun Watson happy. First, Deshaun Watson said, "You can miss me with this dude," because he has no experience. And then Deshaun Watson had his own issues. That's apples and oranges in my concern. You can't put him in the same category of let's say Vance Josephs, the Steve Wilkes, the damn sure not the Mike Tomlins of the world, but the Brian Flores, the coaches that was actually hired off their ability. This guy was a dang on manager that got pulled out of the grave and was a head coach just for one specific reason. So I just wanted to throw that out there, because people like to use David Culley as an example. He got hired,
but I think again the larger point here, like, because the people believe, right or wrong, that the NFL blackballed Colin Kaepernick based off his protest, his kneeling for the national anthem. Mm-hmm. I would not blackball Brian Flores, because Brian Flores belongs and we saw like that was just a polarizing thing for the NFL. They lost viewers. It was just a circus, and it's going to be the same thing. If people believe that Brian Flores is being blackballed from being a head coach when he clearly deserves it, that's going to be another problem for them.